Hi there, I'm Drew Badger, the world's #1 English fluency guide, and welcome to another advanced listening practice lesson. Let's get into the magic and discuss some more interesting things on the program today. Well, today I wanted to talk about I'm a little bit upset, actually. I feel bad about it, but at the same time, it needs to be said. Sometimes, as an English fluency guide, I don't want to just teach you things. I need to, help with a little bit of that psychology as well. And if I see people that are either making mistakes or they are bullshitting, so to bullshit just means you're spending time doing things that you do not need to do, or you're doing things in the wrong order that you should be doing them in. You're wasting time trying to do things that are comfortable instead of doing what's necessary and what you really need to do to get fluent. So I want to talk about that in this video. Now I'm going to use an analogy for business because I talk about business a lot. I'm in business. I love discussing that. And there are a lot of great lessons from business that can be applied to everyday life and actually vice versa. So vice versa meaning going from learning about life to business or from business to life in general. Now, I don't really listen to many business English podcasts, or not business English podcasts, but just business or entrepreneurial podcasts. I spend most of my time either working on something, or if there's a particular thing I don't know how to do, I try to learn about that specific thing, and then I just get back to work. And this is the same thing I recommend for you when you're trying to improve. You keep moving as far as you can until you're actually stuck. You really feel like you've tried everything. Then you stop and you ask for help. And then as soon as you get that help, you go back to work and you begin improving. Now, it's really interesting. There's a kind of typical podcast that a lot of people make. And this is the trying to get a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs, or, I guess it could be the case for musicians, or it could be the case for anything else, but I'm just focusing on entrepreneurs. So people that create businesses for this particular lesson. But the typical podcast, or atypical podcast, I should say, an episode that lots of different people do, or even writing books about this, is trying to distill. So they take an idea and try to filter it, try to understand, try to reduce that information into some particular idea. And people ask what's the one trait, or what's the one thing that people need to become a fantastic entrepreneur? And there are lots of different answers for this. You hear people they've got to be a good leader, or they've got to be good at motivating people, or they've got to be good at creating ideas, or, other things like that. But typically you hear all these different things, and I feel bad about all of these answers because really it's confusing the people that are watching this or listening to the podcast in this case. So if you're reading a book and you're trying to figure out, you watch, a lot of books that are okay, we're going to profile 30 different companies and figure out how all of them did something correctly. We're going to profile 30 different entrepreneurs and figure out how all of them did something correctly. I hate to just come out and say it, but really the thing that actually connects all these entrepreneurs together is they know how to sell. And that's it. And it's the most important skill in business. And if you don't know how to sell, all this stuff about leadership and motivation and all that, it won't mean anything. But nobody really talks about that. And it's an interesting thing. And I think a lot of the reason that people don't talk about that is because it's the least comfortable thing for lots of people to do. So it's easy to sit and talk about, let's talk about motivation and leadership and trying to focus on what your why reason is and all these other things that you think are really important. But a business is only a business if you're releasing some product or service for money. So other than that, all this other stuff doesn't mean anything unless you actually have a business that's producing something in order to earn money from doing that, because that's what the definition of a business is. Now, all these other things, again, it's nice to think about those things, but really they're distracting you from focusing on the most important thing you should be doing. So if you're in business, whether you're working for a company or working for yourself, learn about sales and marketing. And this is actually why you should be promoting yourself in a certain way, or how to promote yourself, how to connect with the market, all of these other things, instead of thinking about all whatever else about leadership and all that, because all of those other things actually come from the confidence that you get when you actually know how to sell and market properly. So instead of focusing on all these other things, Focus on just that. Now, the analogy here, the reason I'm bringing this all up is because we get the exact same thing for people trying to learn English. Now, what's the one thing that connects all the people that are really successful, that are English learners, and they become actual fluent speakers? They speak. That's it. They're not sitting around trying to remember grammar rules. They're not trying to do like lots of listening practice exercises. They speak. And you'd be surprised that in the same way that when you're talking about sales and marketing, if you just focus on that, sales and marketing drives a great product. Sales and marketing drives great customer acquisition. Sales and marketing drives everything else. And it creates a leadership position for you in the market if you do it properly. So it helps you create a great product if that's what you want to do, as opposed to, well, again, we could talk about how to do business, but I'm not really talking about that or focusing on that here in this podcast, but here in this lesson. But the interesting thing here is that people spend a lot of time trying to focus on other things because they're comfortable. It's easy to sit and think, okay, I'm going to open my textbook over here, and I know I spent 13 minutes or I spent half an hour or even 2 hours reading through this book, and it made me feel better about my language because I spent some time doing that. But this is the wrong way to think about practice. This is a waste of time. What you really should be doing is you're learning some information, and then you're getting out and using that information as much as possible. Again, using this 80-20 of spending 20% of your time learning and 80% of your time at least, going out and using what you're learning. So all of these things, if you're spinning your wheels, which is a great English expression, it just means you're like a hamster in a wheel where you're running, you're moving, but you're not actually getting anywhere. So if you feel like you're spinning your wheels, it's typically because you're trying to do things that you're comfortable with instead of stretching yourself, instead of moving into the things that you should be working on that are less comfortable. So when you're in business, like trying to develop a great website or trying to, think about what exactly your company name or your company logo should be. People spend all this time thinking about those things when all they really need to do is focus on sales and marketing. Because when you focus on that, from the ideas you get from working directly with your customer base or your potential customer base, that's where you get all the ideas for a great product and how to produce something that a lot of people want to buy and all these things that really guarantee success in a business, whereas thinking about your logo and what your website looks like doesn't. Now, these things, again, they're fun to work on, but they're just not that important in terms of business, and they're not necessary as well. So think about that in the same way for learning English. Focus on speaking. Speak, speak, speak. I can give you tons of different tips about how to do things, from listening and pronunciation improvement to all kinds of other skills that you might get. But the people that go out and speak, no bullshit. Just get out and speak. Say hello to people when they walk by. When you get an opportunity to say something to someone, say it. So that's my best advice. Sometimes people need a little kick. They need a kick in the ass to get going. So hopefully this is your kick in the ass for today. If you're sitting around just watching videos all day, I'm happy that you're enjoying the videos, but I'd much rather you get out and actually speak. So learn something from a video like this. Turn off the video, then get out and practice. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye. To continue learning, click on the link in this video to download Speak English Naturally, our free guide to speaking and sounding like a native English speaker. The guide reveals the 3 most important kinds of conversational English you must learn if you want to sound native, and will help you experience instant improvement in your fluency and speaking confidence. To download your free guide on a mobile device, click on the link in the upper right of this video. To download your free guide from a computer, click on the link in the lower right of this video. I look forward to seeing you in the guide.